Hello and welcome to Getting There by Bike. I'm your host, Gail Ruscetta, and I have a wonderful guest for you today, Lisa Watts, a writer, editor, and passionate cyclist. You're going to love her. Lisa, thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Thanks,
I'm thrilled
Gail.
to have you.
Thanks for the invite.
Oh, you're welcome. One of your books, called Crossing Bridges, What Biking Up the East Coast Taught Me About Life After 60, is an exploration of places along the East Coast Greenway, which is this 3,000-mile pedestrian biking path from the southern tip of Florida all the way up to Calais, Maine, right there at the New Brunswick border in Canada. And Lisa did this with a close friend. So it is that. But also, in this memoir, you share your reflections and you share lessons that you gained about your life that is so relatable to everyone. We can all recognize and share friendship, and you talk about marriage and ambition and self-doubt, getting older. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I also wanted to mention Lisa's most recent effort is a short guide to the East Coast Greenway that starts in New Haven, Connecticut.
Yes.
And goes right to Providence, Rhode Island. So that would be of interest to us, certainly to me, and I've seen it and it's wonderful, but I'll let Lisa tell you more about that. So I am so glad you're here. Thank you so much.
Let's talk biking.
All right, let's talk biking. All right, Lisa, tell me, I love to have our guests tell us a little bit about how they came here, how you got to Rhode Island, a little bit about your life and your life's journey.
Yeah. I could go on for hours and hours because I've moved a lot, but the fun thing is Rhode Island keeps coming back. I keep circling back to Rhode Island in my life. So I lived up the East Coast from Georgia to Maryland to outside of Boston, went to college at UMass Amherst. Mm-hmm. My first job was in Newport, working for the U.S. Yacht Racing Union on Rhode Island. So spent about a year and a half here. And then as a newlywed in 1988, I came back to Providence and helped start Rhode Island Monthly magazine. I loved magazines. So did that for about a year. But my husband was working in Boston, and long distance was kind of hard when we were newlyweds. So then, years later, we're in Mystic, Connecticut with 2 little kids, and we start renting at the beach in Mesquamacut. Mm-hmm. And eventually we bought a house that we could use a couple weeks and then rent out the rest of the summer. So the kids would keep going to the ocean. We moved on to Ohio and then North Carolina. And then in the last 5 years, twice we've tried to retire to Rhode Island. Most recently in 2022, and now it's stuck. We're here. We've retired here. And not surprisingly, the house we chose is 2 houses from the East Bay Bike Path, and that was like one of the main reasons we are where we are.
Oh, that's perfection.
Yeah. I've been able to bike a lot of the East Coast, not a lot of the U.S., but a lot of the East Coast, a fair amount in Europe, and the East Bay Bike Path is still one of the most beautiful routes I know. And
it is absolutely a gem
stunning.
Of this state, and it's stunning. If you have not yet been on the East Bay Bike Path, it starts, one of the terminus is in Bristol at Independence Park. You can park there and you can begin there, and it takes you all the way up to East Providence along the water. It is
to the Providence Harbor and India Point Park, and it's just, I mean, so much of it is along the water, and you go through these little villages and you go through open green areas. It's gorgeous. And because we live so close, and I'm a runner, and I used to have a little dog that I walked. I am on it every day. It's my playground, and you see people of all ages, all abilities. It is thoroughly used, and when I used to, so for 4 years, I worked as the communications manager for the East Coast Greenway Alliance, the nonprofit working to build this 3,000-mile route from Key West to Canada. Over and over again as each community, because at this point, the 3,000 miles, they're approaching like 35, 38% complete on protected greenways or shared use paths. The rest of it is still on roads. So the work is very much ongoing. And each time they try to go to a community and talk about all the benefits that you know very well.
Yes.
Exercise, public health, good for the environment, good for business. It's like you have to tell the story all over again. And I want to point to, like, look at the East Coast, the East Bay Bike Path. You know, look at how beloved and used and what it means for the local businesses. But it just seems like it's a story that has to be told over again. Yeah.
And so that gets tiring for you.
Well, you know, I think that there are people who work in advocacy of all kinds, but especially bicycle pedestrian. They just have a lot of stamina and patience.
Yes.
I'm a person who likes to see cause and effect and get things done, and I'm afraid I don't have quite enough stamina for advocacy, but I'll do what I can.
Yes, I kudos to our executive director, Barry Freeman, who has been at this since 2011 and is tireless.
And you tell the same story over and over again.
Yes.
You have to, but yeah.
Yes. Well, tell me a little bit about this.
Sure.
Guide to the East Coast Greenway from New Haven to Providence, and how did this come about?
So this is the second edition. It just came out about a month ago. I left the Alliance in 2020, right before the pandemic started. And then my executive director said, we got a grant to do this guide, basically Connecticut and Rhode Island. Would you consider it? And I said, I'm moving to Rhode Island, like right on the Connecticut line. It's perfect.
Oh, there you go.
But it was the pandemic, so a lot of it was sort of done long distance, and we wanted to make it for anyone walking, running, rolling, biking, how they might break up. It's about 175 miles of some of the prettiest of the East Coast Greenway.
Lovely.
You know, in general, New England and the Northeast are more developed than the southern half of the route is. So that was great. It was always intended as an inspirational book. This is not something you would stick in your front handlebar bag and that would get you on the trip. Most of us navigate now by, you know, GPS. But if you read it ahead of time, you would learn a little bit about the history, architecture, natural sites, fun places for ice cream or a beer or dinner, you know, all of those things, and get you inspired.
Right.
So we've updated it now. Probably about 30 breweries have closed in the 5 years since then.
This kinds of things happen in the business world.
Yeah.
All opening and closing all the time.
And it's such a strange period of time with the pandemic and all the other things. But meanwhile, Connecticut is going gangbusters with their Greenway development. So there have been new stretches added to that. So it includes like the Farmington Valley Trail that takes you pretty much north-south up to Hartford, and then the Greenway cuts over and you go like the Airline Trail and the Hop River Trail. They're all beautiful.
Oh, the Airline and Hop River trails are so historic and so wonderful. Biking over, and this is, the great thing about this is that we could get in the car and you can make a day of this. You don't have to travel forever in the car to get there. And then you're
in the woods, which is amazing.
Yeah, the New England woods, and they filled in all of these train trestles. Tell me about that. How great is that?
And that's really fun. This area has such a rich history of rail lines and trains. And sure enough, once they did all the hard work of crossing ridges and building these trestles, you know, newer technology kept coming and cars kept. So, you know, right about when things were complete, they kind of became
obsolete. Yes. But they made it part of these trails that are marvelous to get on a bike or walk in the, I just love it there. And the fall leaves, or any time of year, because it's shady in summer. I can't say enough about it.
And to me, one of the things I love about the overall design of the East Coast Greenway, which started, I think it's been more than 30 years now, by transportation planners in Boston, New York, DC, it wasn't just to be a long-distance trail for long-distance travelers. It was also for local folks who are commuting or,
Yes.
exercising. And so you go directly through all these major cities on the East Coast, from Boston to Philly to DC, New York. I love that because some of the nicest, most fun infrastructure are the bike lanes that take you through the city. You think you might have to be on 95, because you don't see that. And so on my trip, people kept saying, "Oh, what's your favorite city or area?" And I loved it all. But coming into a city and knowing that we had gotten there under our own steam, and like Philly has that great raised walkway over the river as you're coming into downtown. It's magical.
Yes.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is just like accessible to anyone.
Yes. So we were talking earlier. I don't know where this came from, but when I took the 2-month trip, I was working for the East Coast Greenway Alliance, and we had done a bunch of work. I had redone the website. We had done a 25th anniversary. And then my boss and I went for a walk, and I said, could I take a 2-month leave? I really want to bike the route with my dear friend Dee, who lives in Lincoln, and she and I met years ago, 40 years ago, working at Northeastern University in Boston. It just had been a dream of mine for decades, before I even knew of the route. And he was agreeable to it. I think
2 months, is that long enough?
Well, because I had a job,
Oh.
I needed the income. So I was 58, Dee was 67. We averaged 60 miles a day, and we averaged 1 rest day a week. And we thought that was all reasonable. It was reasonable. Looking back, I don't want to go that long, day after day anymore. Yeah. But I was very goal-oriented at the time. Again, like I had measured everything out, and we had arranged a lot of our stays, and so we were on a schedule. I don't want to do that anymore. But I was still working. It was a part of getting back when I said I would give back.
That's so interesting. We think about what's really important here. Well, yes, it's important to pay the bills, and I so get that.
Right.
But to have the luxury of a little more time to be able to just spend a day or actually walk through that park instead of just rolling by because
saying,
you've got.
Oh, look, yeah.
Yes, is just glorious.
Yeah, and that's a mind frame. I think a lot of us bicycle tourists, when we're younger, and maybe if we were road cyclists, we can't help but think about kind of what our pace is. And I was sort of in that mind frame. I've lost that now. I don't care how fast we go. And I would much rather do 40 or 45 miles a day and enjoy what we were seeing. But we were doing it day after day. And we both got much stronger so that by the second month, that was nothing. And it was fine. Yeah. One thing I've always been tickled about, our deputy director at the time, a good friend at the Greenway, when I got back, he said, I think you two set a record for doing the whole thing. And I thought, us two old ladies, just because we really dedicated the time, and then since then it's been blown out of the water.
Right.
There are young guys who have, done it in a month or whatever, but that certainly was not our intent. But I was on a schedule because I had to get back to my job and my husband and the dogs and all of that.
Let's go back to that one word that you just said, mind frame, your frame of mind.
Yes.
I don't think that frame of mind is limited to bicycling. I think it's something that Americans especially carry with them daily.
Sure.
The culture demands it almost.
Yes.
And it's something that you have to fight against and just make a decision for yourself that you are not going to do that.
Right.
Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, it started to come over me again by the second half of the ride that I knew that one of the things I had done week-long bike trips at that point, nothing longer. And I had fantasized about 2 months because I live in my head a lot. I wanted to pretend that this was how I lived. because it's so simple. You have a handlebar bag and you have 2 rear panniers, and that's it. You have to keep yourself fed and watered and know where you're getting to at the end of the day.
Get sleep.
And that's it. And
get
sleep.
sleep.
But I'm good at sleep. By the second month, I was dropping all of my, we got to get there. Come on, hurry up. Let's get there, and truly enjoying it. Because then you start to realize this is almost over.
It forced
You're
it
about
on
to
you.
go back to your desk
forced
job.
that on you. I love that.
And so what I was going to say, because I was 58 when I took the trip, and then starting when the pandemic started, I decided I wanted to write about it. And I thought I would just write a travel log. But what I realized was nothing terribly exciting happened. It was kind of ho-hum. You know, we biked for 60 days, and I learned to communicate with Dee a little bit better because that was pretty intense to spend, you know, 24/7 with somebody, intense time. But it wasn't like overcoming any hurdles or anything. And so I shelved it. But something kept pushing me, like there's a reason I want to tell this story, and I knew it was among my friends, all of us approaching 60, most of us who had had kids, had work. There's a sense, especially for women, but not just women, that like, okay, now your life starts to go downhill. Like you've done all the interesting things and now it's going to be like, what else? And I feel exactly the opposite. It's like, okay, I've done my career. In fact, I'm about to retire. I've raised my kids. They're off and living their lives. I can actually play now. And I wanted to tell that message. And so it's one of the messages of Crossing Bridges that, oh my God, this is such a treasured time. And I've become an evangelist for 60 and older. Chances are you're still healthy. Chances are you have some resources, some time, some money that you can, you know, if you need to stay in a motel, you can. And this is your time.
Yes.
And it's, that's been sort of a overarching mantra ever since.
Yes, good for you.
Yeah,
and
I've had the pleasure.
Important. Yes.
So first, during the pandemic, my husband and I tried living in Westerly, Rhode Island for about 2 years, and for a number of reasons it didn't work. But during that time, and Dee was up in Lincoln, a mother and daughter reached out to Dee because a local paper had done a story about our trip. And they said, could we talk to you? Because they were thinking about doing it. It was the pandemic. What else are they going to do?
Sure.
And Dee said, and they were in, I think, East Greenwich. And Dee said, well, Lisa's in Westerly. We'll meet halfway at your place. So it's like the 3rd month of the pandemic. We sat in their house with all the windows open and fans blowing and talking to them. Dee is very slight. She's been a runner all her life. You know, she's now, well, at the time she was approaching 70, and I'm approaching 60. And at one point, the mother, who was probably, you know, mid-50s, looked at us and she said, you know, just seeing the 2 of you makes me realize we can do this. And we laughed, but I appreciate it. We are not super athletes. Bicycle riding is so accessible.
Yes.
It's low impact.
Yes.
You can take it at whatever pace you want.
Right.
You do get stronger as you go along. It's not the same for running. You can't run 4 miles one day and 10 miles the next day and just keep getting stronger, but you can on a bike.
Yes.
And again, that's part of the message that I love sharing and pushing on people. Like, you could do this. You should try it.
Yes, you can do it. And there are so many now different types of bikes that are make cycling more and more accessible, so much more comfortable. There are even trikes that are marvelous to ride.
Right.
At Bike Newport, we have a number of these trikes that are comfy and huge basket in the back that you can carry things.
Yes. Yeah.
Just to be able to get out and move through.
And what
I keep
happens,
talking about this, getting out and moving through space.
And what happens when people do that? It is this like instant time machine where you feel like a kid again. That's what we all say.
Yes.
Because as a kid, it's often your first taste of freedom. Like, I'm driving myself and I can go wherever I want and it's my own power.
Yes.
And bikes just do that automatically.
Yeah, they're not sitting in the back seat with a parent driving. They're driving themselves through space.
Yes.
They're becoming part of their community. They can see people, say hello,
make choices.
Hear the birds,
I'm
make their
go
own
there.
choices.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that.
Excuse me. Yeah.
All right, now, you're now permanently, you're tired and you're living in
Barrington.
In Barrington.
On the bike path, on my bike
right
path.
Right on the bike path.
I let other people use it, but yeah.
Are you still getting out on it?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have to say, it sounds funny, I don't really bike for regular exercise sake. I run, and so 3 or 4 times a week I run, and that's kind of cardio exercise. But I bike and do all my errands, many of my errands. One of my favorite things in the summer is biking 8 miles to India Point Park for a Saturday morning yoga class on the dock, on the harbor. And then a bunch of us go for coffee, and then I ride home. That's a great morning.
That's a great morning.
Yeah. So, and my husband does some volunteering in Providence, and he didn't really grow up cycling. It's not second nature to him like it is to me. He loves that bike path because it makes him feel so, it's safe, and it's, and so he loves biking to Providence. And you have one hill going there, one hill going back. That's all very accessible.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I was just on it under 2 days ago with my little partner in crime here. This is Pablo.
Pablo's such a handsome dude.
He accompanies me on the bike. I have a basket in the back.
And he's a fan.
And he is a fan. He just loves to go. He likes
Go
to
Pablo.
be with me. So I would introduce him to you. Yes.
Do you agree that bicycling makes you feel free?
It makes him feel free. He's out there with the wind in his hair. Thoughts, Lisa, on, those of us who are older adults and really wanting to try something but feel like it's behind us.
Right. I'm also a really big believer in doing it with friends. And I think I've been really lucky all my adult life. I've had pals to run with, running partners who have been really compatible pace-wise, and we yak. It's therapy and it's stories and we laugh, and that makes it go fast and makes it enjoyable. It's not quite as easy on bikes. You can't really hear each other that well. You can't hear long stories, but finding a friend or two who would be interested in trying it, and you can do it together, and you kind of help each other, and you can laugh together about it. I think that goes a long way. Lots of organizations offer rides. I know Bike Newport is,
Shameless plug here. Cycle Friends is a group for people who want to develop their confidence riding and have a social time and make friends. And so
that's great. Yeah.
For that very reason, we meet the first Saturday of every month from 9 a.m. to 11. 9 to 11 is Cycle Friends, first Saturday of every month.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure you go at a reasonable pace.
We go slowly. If we don't feel confident to go out on the road, we have places we can ride that's not riding in traffic until we feel comfortable.
Right.
And I think that's what people really need.
Yes.
Everybody concentrates on the kids.
Right.
But I find adults really want to and need to move as well.
And so in my little town, there is a lot of focus on school children and getting them to school safely. And oh my gosh, what a privileged community to have that stretch of bike path running through it. So it's wonderful to see middle school kids, elementary kids riding their bike to school. But I do think about the 60 and over crowd, because those are women who could ride their bike to the grocery store and be one more car off the road and feel good.
And people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I think that they are the ones who need encouragement, because it may have been 40 years since they've been on a bike.
Right.
And again, to have something like the bike path where it couldn't be any safer. So I happen to live 0.8 of a mile down the bike path from the Shaw's Market. So I'm like, I'll go to the grocery store because it's fun to me. I go under this beautiful, tree canopy and go pick up what I need for the day. And I'm so happy, you know. I never used to be happy driving to the grocery store.
Well, we now have a bike path in Newport along Coddington Highway that will take you to the grocery store from the north end of Newport. Anybody could do their shopping by bike. And with the advent an advancement of the electric bicycle market. The East Bay Bike Path allows Class 1 type of e-bikes, which, I recommend the Class 1s because you have to pedal and it will stop assisting you at 20 miles per hour. 20 miles per hour is pretty darn fast.
It's fast, yeah.
Yeah, so even if you wanted to, and we've talked about this before, get on a bike that will give you a little boost to get up the hill, you're still going to get more exercise riding that e-bike than you would probably riding a traditional bike because you're going to ride it more often.
Right. And how many times have you done errands in your car and come home and said, oh, that was just so fun?
Yeah.
Doesn't happen.
No, you never. You're just something to get through, but on your bike.
Yeah.
Any parting thoughts, Lisa?
One thing you and I discussed a little bit, the world of cycling, I feel has gotten really siloed, and I sometimes don't even want to use the word cyclist to describe what I do, because you might picture immediately someone who's all about going fast and wearing this funny kit and you're in my way. It's not the cycling I do. It barely was ever the cycling I do. And so I want people to lose that image too. You're riding your bike. And I call myself a bicycle tourist because that's what I truly enjoy, is getting myself somewhere that I can enjoy. Ice cream cone, cup of coffee, whatever.
Yes.
And so it's almost like with e-bikes, pedal assist is what those bikes are. They're not scooters. You have to pedal. I think we might need to work on the language. And so I barely say I'm a cyclist. I ride my bike a lot.
I ride my bicycle. And that's what I say for myself, because, I'm the lady on the bike path with the dog in the basket. And we're just enjoying ourselves. I should get him a little pair of goggles, actually.
And a little Pablo helmet.
But the thing is that the benefits last all day and into the next day. You feel great when you get off a bicycle. You're great while you're doing it, and then you're great when you get off the bicycle.
Yes.
Oh, Lisa, thank you so much for coming. It was so fun.
A soulmate, Gail.
Soulmate. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, Pablo.
You're welcome.
Good job.
This is Gail Ruscetta. I'm your host for Getting There by Bike. I am the community educator at Bike Newport, and thank you so much for watching. Tune in next month when we'll have another guest. Thank you, Lisa Watts.
Thank you.
Lucy's Hearth is a family shelter in Middletown, Rhode Island. We provide a continuum of housing supports for families experiencing homelessness across Rhode Island. If you are looking for ways to help, please visit our website at lucyshearth.org.